And how many of you are founders? Oh, it's a good mix. You were right. It's like a mix of both. So, hopefully this is relevant for both of you. Just very quickly, quick intro on Pear. So we're a pre-seed seed specialist. We invest in a generalist fund across a bunch of different verticals, and have invested in companies worth $100 billion in outcomes. So across B2B, healthcare, consumer, fintech, biotech, climate, AI. So I think that gives us a really good purview into what's happening in marketing across everything. On the pre-seed side, we invest $250 to $2 million checks. On the seed side, which is where I spend most of my time, it's anywhere from $2 to $6 million, and then have a lot in our fund for follow-on. So I was just speaking to a founder earlier. We, on the pre-seed side, run an accelerator called Pear X, and applications are open for a few more days. So if you're a founder in the room building something interesting and looking for pre-seed funding, I would encourage you to take a look at Pear X. But now to the actual content of the talk. So when I was talking to Arjun over the last year, I guess, we've talked a lot about kind of what's happening in the marketing ecosystem. And so I thought I could bring a unique perspective in that I'm now on the venture side, but I worked in marketing for about 15 years, started a fund focused on helping companies with marketing called Market One. We had a newsletter that is still going with my business partner, Emily, and then now at Pear, kind of seeing a breadth of a bunch of different companies as well. So I see a lot of MarTech companies. I've invested in a few that Megan had on her slide, which was fun to see, and also have worked with a lot of companies from an investor perspective of like how to think about marketing and bringing products to market. So I wanted to share a handful of trends that I'm seeing of kind of how things were done and the new way of doing things, and then want to leave a lot of time for questions. So, old way. I think go-to-market teams in the past have been, you have your sales team, you have your marketing team, you have your customer success team. They kind of talk to each other. They often have a lot of friction, and each team has a whole different set of tools, specifically on, where the lines cross. How many of you here have had some form of friction with some of the other go-to-market functions? Yes, I think we can all raise our hand on that one. I think that's changing in the most positive way. This is something that never really made a ton of sense for me. So I grew up in my career at Facebook, where on the consumer side, it's kind of all just one funnel, whereas on the B2B side, it feels like it made sense that they were kind of broken apart, but in a lot of ways, it's just one customer journey. And I think the opportunity in the future here with a lot of these AI tools is go-to-market teams kind of coming closer together and being more as one. So tools that span full funnel, a cohesive view of kind of prospect, customer, like retention, one view of that. And I think that will help connect a lot of the dots and hopefully decrease the friction. I think there's a lot of integrated tools that will be powered by agents, and agents don't have egos, so hopefully that also helps dispel some of this. And then just a lot more unified data. And I think when you think about from a customer perspective, they don't care that they are talking to marketing, sales, or customer success. They care that they are talking to you and that you have a consistent view of that. That was one of the things that really excited me when I joined Intercom. That was sort of our vision. I think they've now pivoted a lot more into the customer support space, but I think that was the vision there of like one view of a customer, a bunch of different ways that you can talk to them, and consistency, because your customers really don't care what team you're on or what your job title is, and I think they want a consistent view of that. And I think teams that can foster that will have a better relationship with their customers. So that's one trend I'm seeing. The next is around ABM. So it used to be ABM was pretty cost prohibitive to do for all of your accounts. You could track activity for maybe the top handful or top 20%. Only made sense with a really high ACV type business model. I remember when I was at my last startup before I started Market One, we were looking at some of the ABM tools as a startup, like Series A startup, and we were like, oh man, it's so expensive. Like, can we really spend 80 grand on 6 cents? And for us, the cost didn't justify it at that moment in time. But I think that everyone probably went through that decision making, and obviously the business has grown a ton, so it made sense for a lot of people, but I think it really was a question, like, can we do this, and does it make sense for our business model? I think we all see the trend of personalization at scale. I think the interesting thing here is that you can really track a lot of the account engagement, intent signals for the entire TAM of your business and not just the top accounts. And so I think that the ability to do that is going to help you be a lot more targeted in the way that you talk to customers, segment your audiences, and do your outreach. And so I think this is a really exciting opportunity because this used to be so cost prohibitive and people prohibitive, and now it's just opened up so many opportunities for kind of every company to do this. And I think the expectations of buyers is going to change because of this. So if you're not adopting this in your companies or on the right side of this trend, I think you will very quickly get displaced. I think about marketing a lot of like, it's part art, part science. I think in the last 10 to 15 years, it has moved very far to the science side. It's like become very analytical. It's like, what are your MQLs? What's your lead gen? Like demand gen has sort of become the top function within a marketing team. And I think, for good reason, we like are shifting back to it is part art, part science. And I think the interesting thing with AI and LLMs and such is, I think brand and storytelling is going to become so much more important because there's so much noise in the system. And so being able to really tell a unique story, build a differentiated brand is going to help companies win. And I think marketers, the opportunity here is to, if you think about what can you automate and what do you still need the human for? Like humans want to buy from humans, they want to hear a personalized story. And I think as good as AI and LLMs get, I think humans are still going to be better at that because, well, who knows? I might be wrong on this in 10 years when the robots take all of our jobs. But I really do believe that like there is something fundamental about a human that is hard for a computer to replace, at least in the next 5 years. And so that brand ability is going to be, I think, an elevated position within marketing in particular. And I think product positioning, unique stories, I meet hundreds of companies a month, and a lot of them start to look and feel the same. And so I think being able to actually do this and tell what is our unique, perspective, how are you going to win as a brand and company and build that loyalty for your customers, it's going to be a really big moat for companies. And so if you're not thinking about this, I would think about this. I think also the cost of content has gone basically to zero. The cost of really good content is actually pretty high because you have to cut through the noise. And so I think focusing on the highest quality content that you can, that's unique and differentiated for you, is where I would spend time and then automate the rest. So I think this is the trend that's happening and it's only going to be accelerated. So thinking about from a unique content perspective, one thought there is like, do you have differentiated data that only you can share? Do you have, some unique customer perspectives that you can share? Something that will actually help you stand out because it is so noisy, and you can really tell when content is written 100% by, ChatGPT, especially on LinkedIn. So. Another trend we're seeing, so it used to be, you would run a test, A/B test, see which version performed better, look at the results, spend a month, then ship the new version. Do that, manually reviewing, every little change or new version of something you wanted to do. I think those days are gone. There's still hypotheses that you will have. But the world of continuous optimizations are here. So all the connective tissue between an ad, a landing page, copy change, they're all just going to be continuously optimized and being tested in real time. And I think that's been a really interesting sort of trend. I've met a few companies that are actually doing this, and the results that they're seeing are super impressive. And they're doing it where you don't even need a team to actually do it for you. So no human review. I think it's an open question of will there be a person who owns this, or will teams just hire the AI agents to do this 100% autonomously? But we are moving towards that world, which I think is exciting. I think that's where I think about this sort of art and science, the science part of marketing can be automated in a lot of ways, which is awesome. This has been an interesting one that I'm like still noodling on, but I think agencies, traditionally have been like relying on humans, human expertise. I'm going to go to this agency because they're world class at this thing. And agencies have struggled to scale because they need to bring all that expertise in, and they're inherently like resource constrained by the number of people that they can onboard to be excellent at the things that they're doing. I'm seeing so many AI-powered agencies right now, and I was talking to some of my partners at Pear where I was like, are we going to see the first AI agency go public? Because there's a world where they're selling, a lot of these folks, like I met an SEO agency where they're like automating 60% of the work, where the margins are still really good, but then they're still human, account managers, but they're so much more efficient. I saw one for like running ads, and they're all hitting, 5 to 10 million in revenue for like 10 people. And so these AI agents are really taking on the work previously done by humans. These agencies can infinitely scale in ways that they couldn't before. And so my big open question is there going to be an agency IPO in our future? Potentially. And I think that it's something just to think about as you're thinking about hiring agencies. Are you really hiring an agency, or are you just like hiring an AI, agency? And if your agencies aren't using AI, they're probably not doing the most modern things. So I would actually ask that as an interview question of like, how is the agency leveraging AI? The next big trend I'm seeing, so with all the access to LLMs and workflows, inbound and outbound is just getting so saturated. The number of inbound automated emails I get, the number of like cold outreach prospects, I just think it's really hard to do given all the noise. And I think I was just talking to someone before this about kind of partner, the opportunity for like partnerships, ecosystem, community. We're all here as part of the AI marketing community. I think that's going to be the new way that companies go to market. It's like finding your people, engaging with that audience, building trust and credibility, and then going and sort of like finding the next wave from there. I think distribution really is going to come from this. And when I talk to founders a lot, I'm like, where does your audience hang out? There are so many newsletters now. There's so many communities. There's very targeted events. And I think those tend to be a lot more effective than just, the old ways of doing kind of like outbound like we used to. And I think it's like, communities like this are a prime example of it. It's like, where do you go to find your trusted group of people who help you make buying decisions? And I think that trend is only going to accelerate in the next 5 years as more and more companies come online. And you're like, I don't know, like who, I thought that slide that Megan had of like what Samsara is using is so valuable. You guys are all probably taking notes of like, oh, well, maybe I should, try that product because it's been vetted by someone in a trusted community. And so I think buyer behaviors are changing because of that. So specialists versus generalists, I think marketers who are really good at one thing are not going to be around much longer. So if you're like the Marketo expert at your company, I would start building new skills because your job is not going to exist. It might not exist today. I actually met a founder. I was referencing a MarTech company, and I met 2 of their customers. And I met the head of marketing, who came from a product marketing perspective or product marketing background, took over as head of marketing. They were using Marketo. He had no idea how to use Marketo. He hired an agency. Then this company that I was diligencing basically built all the automations on top of Marketo. He fired the agency, used the product, and he was able to do all the Marketo stuff without hiring a single person. So that is the future. Tool expertise is not going to matter. Being able to orchestrate across those tools will matter. So I think generalist marketers are the future. I think marketers who understand how all the parts of marketing fit together and the workflows that you need. I think being able to set a strategy and then build the AI-powered workflows around that are going to be super important. And this is an AI native marketer. I think it said, AI native marketer. I didn't know that this sign would be right behind me for this slide. But this is why you're here. Like if you are not adopting AI in your job, You are going to be replaced. I think the opportunity is now for you to be on the front lines and be building the skills. That's why you're here. But I ask the same interview question Megan does when I'm interviewing marketers for my portfolio companies. I'm always like, what are you using? And if the answer is, oh, I'm using ChatGPT to like help me brainstorm, great, what else? That's basic. Everyone should be doing that. But like, what else are you doing? We use a ton of AI at Pear. It's amazing. We can like ingest decks, helps me write my memos. I record all my calls. Like, it queries the transcripts. So we like have a bunch of AI tools that help us do our job because we're going to be replaced at some point. So I think every job is moving towards this, where if you're not an AI native worker, I think a lot of us, our job security is at risk. So that's all I have. Hopefully this gave you a good overview of sort of, the 10,000 foot view of what we're seeing kind of across the marketing stack, and I think just the general sort of AI ecosystem. And I'm happy to answer kind of any questions that folks have.
Questions? Thank you. Great talk. You talked about the AI agencies and how they've become now scalable and working. Maybe some of these agencies become so big that they could go IPO. What advice could you offer to somebody who's starting out, meaning like go a very specific niche? And I asked this question yesterday from a panel as well. I got some good insights. But like as an example, if it's healthcare, then going home health within healthcare and then carving out that niche. Of course, the book says that go very, very narrow in your ICP, and then eventually you can expand once you build up those skills and solve a real problem. But any advice if you have in that direction would be really appreciated from an AI agency standpoint.
Yeah, I think it is it's an advantage to be narrow to begin with. It's only an advantage if you then expand. And so I think the sequencing of the expansion matters a lot, and how you use, like, why is that that initial thing that you're doing the reason that you can expand faster to that second, third, fourth thing that you want to do. So I think about that with like all the MarTech companies from my perspective. They're all going to converge because they're all trying to like orchestrate that layer and be an AI marketing team. Some of them are coming at it through content. Some of them are coming at it through like SEO. Some of them are coming at it through, marketing ops and like kind of the data layer. Some of them are coming at it from like a product marketing perspective. They're all going to try and like, their pitches to me are all like, we're going to be the AI native team. Why is the reason you're starting there the strategic reason why I should bet on you? I think is important. And so I think everyone has to start somewhere. If you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to no one. We all know that. But I think the reason that the place you start has to be strategic because it gives you an edge to go to the second and third thing. So that's what I think a lot about. It's like, why is starting with like ads the thing? Well, it gives you access to all the data, and then you get to like, start with organic, and then you can move to paid. Then, whatever the reason is that you're like starting there, I would make sure that that is a strategic advantage when you try to move to the second and third things you're thinking about.
Hi, I'm Shiva. Nice to meet you. So I am a founder. My question is around some of your slides around like A/B testing being dead and like continuous optimization. I think there's like a huge mismatch between like the narrative of like where we think companies are headed versus what companies trust. I mean, we face that as founders like day in, day out, because I think we get a lot of like, they want humans like very vividly like in the loop. So I'm curious on, are you actually seeing companies move towards like actual automation, or is that something that theoretically we're like aiming for at this point?
Yeah, I see companies starting, like specifically for that example, they're starting with, okay, we're gonna, for the first 3 weeks or first month, we're gonna let the human approve. Then the human trusts it so much that they stop needing to do that. So sometimes you have to build the bridge to the future, and a lot of times that is, brand stuff is so sensitive, or like anything really public facing or website copy, where you want to make sure that, you know, you've spent years building this brand and this messaging. I think oftentimes it's more out of fear than like actually. I think like oftentimes the humans actually approve the stuff, but for a company that's trying to onboard people, I think having that human in the loop and then slowly automating that away is often the right approach, depending on who your ICP is. So I think that makes sense, but I think what we've seen, we have a portfolio company that does this. It's like they've started with the human approval, and they found that in the first couple weeks, once they've proven that out, then they've been able to sort of take that step out. So oftentimes you have to build the bridge.
Thanks for this. I think one of the slides you touched on the shift from inbound, outbound to an ecosystem partnership play. Do you see the latter as being scalable over time?
Yeah, I sent my deck to one of my friends, and he was like, outbound is not dead. I was like, okay. So you can make an argument. Over time, you will layer that on, but it has to be done differently. So I actually do think like ecosystem, it's like a compounding thing. And so you start with your initial sort of ICP, and then it's like, who else can you layer on? And maybe it becomes an own thing where, you know, you've built the brand and credibility, where like you start your own sort of newsletter or conference or something like that. But I think that it's just like the old ways of doing it just don't work. Because they're oversaturated. Everyone can do it. Yeah, I mean, you can, but I think it's just hard. Like, I think, like, you have to go find your audience where it's like product marketing 101. Like, who's your audience? Who's your customers? Where do they hang out? How do they find information? And maybe it's like depending on who they are, maybe outbound will work for them. There's always exceptions to this stuff, but I think like the like broad-based outbound never made sense to me because it's just so inefficient. Right. Exactly. But you're at a trade show that's specifically for your, I guess. So it's like if all your audience goes there, I invested from Market One in this storage or this product that basically helps facilities management. One of their big verticals is the self-storage industry. There's a really big self-storage conference that happens every year in Vegas. There's 2,000 people. The top 2,000 self-storage companies go there. That is like their entire ICP. So it's like, what can you do to like capture that audience at that conference? And then what are you doing beforehand and after to like follow up with them? That to me is like your whole ecosystem is there. How do you leverage that? So I think events can be effective. I think certain newsletters, like certain influencers, tight-knit communities that are like the thought leaders of your audience. I think Mutiny's done a good job of this with their CMO stuff. Sixth Sense did that before then. So I think there's some good examples in the ecosystem that have done that.
Hi there, I'm Kenny, and I loved your slide around moving from marketing silos. Totally have found in my experience the same thing that's really important. For Pear VC and the stages of companies that you're investing in, which is super early stage, what are the right GTM efficiency ratios to target if they should be looking for your concept?
Yeah, it's interesting. Oftentimes, I mean, pre-seed is the founder. Seed is often the founder who's still doing a lot of it. The question, yeah, I mean, at seed stage, maybe you've hired one or two people on the go-to-market side, and I think it depends on your go-to-market motion of like who that first hire is, in addition to the skills of the founder. So it's like not an always one-size-fits-all.
Got it. So it's like obviously there's you're doing founder-led sales, but then is there like obviously LTV to CAC might be overkill at that point. So it's just like get product market fit or get scale.
The way I generally think about it, so when I was when we were running Market One, we invest in early stage companies, pre-seed through Series A, mostly seed, and we invest in 35 companies. Our value add was helping you hire your first marketer, build your marketing team and strategy. The common things we saw were like, when are you ready to actually hire a marketer? It's when you have a handful of customers, you're actually like fairly confident that you're ready to scale up, like you can handle more people. And then you may or may not know what your go-to-market motion is going to look like. And so I think that's the other thing of like, do you have a sense for like distribution and how that's going to work? Have you done anything there? And maybe you hire some agencies to start or some fractional people. I think the whole fractional world is like super interesting right now because there's amazing people who are doing fractional things. Whereas I think 10 years ago, you wouldn't have gotten the caliber of people to do that. So I think who you hire initially, sometimes it's customer success. If you have like, one of my companies, it's like they're onboarding and like customer expansion is actually really important. So their first go-to-market hire is going to be a customer success person to help with like sort of nurturing those customers. And the founder's really good at founder-led sales. So it sort of is like not a one-size-fits-all. It's dependent. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about, because I think VCs often give founders really bad advice on this stuff, where they're like, when you hit this, you need this. It's like, no, it's so nuanced because it depends on your go-to-market motion, who your customers are, what the strengths of the team are, and then you can kind of piece it together, but there's no one-size-fits-all. And that's honestly why we started Market One, was because we kept seeing just bad advice being given to founders, and then they'd hire like a CMO at seed stage, and we're like, you don't need that, and this person isn't doing any work. So, you know, I think it's find people at your stage, see what they're doing, but it's not always a one-size-fits-all.
Cool. Thank you very much, Kathleen. This was awesome. She'll be here for a few more minutes if anybody